All right, ready for another deep dive?
Always.
Awesome. Today we're tackling a talk by President Henry B. Eyring from back in 2018, all about women and their role in gospel learning, specifically at home.
Okay, at home.
Yeah, but honestly, as I was reading it, I felt like it applies way beyond that.
In what way?
Well, he says women are the primary force behind how God's knowledge spreads to his people. And,
Wow.
right, that really made me think.
It's a big statement.
It is, especially because he sets it up against this backdrop of like massive knowledge explosion happening right now within the church.
It's like we're in this information overload age.
Right,
So much coming at us all the time.
exactly. And he even compares trying to stop the flow of knowledge to like damming up the Missouri River.
No way you're going to stop that river.
Right. And that's what it feels like sometimes, doesn't it? Just constant news, social media, everything.
It's true, and it's not just the amount, it's the speed, too. Everything's happening so fast.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So then the question becomes, how do we like filter it all? How do we find the actual truth that matters?
Yeah, how do we make sure we're not just getting swept away by the current?
And that's where Eyring brings in this whole idea of women being key to helping people drink deeply from the well of, true knowledge, especially within their families.
Okay, so he's specifically talking about the family here.
Yeah, but he keeps saying it's part of this equal partnership between women and men, which I have to admit.
How does that work then?
Right. How do those two things go together? I was a little confused by that.
It does seem a little contradictory at first glance.
It does. So is he saying men have no role or like...
I don't think so. I think what he's getting at is there's a particular strength women often bring, this like innate capacity for nurturing. And he's not just talking about physical care.
More like nurturing the soul, nurturing people's connection to the gospel.
Exactly. And I think that's why it might feel a little surprising. Even in this equal partnership, he's pinpointing this responsibility, this strength that he sees in women.
Okay, so why would he say that, though?
Well, he uses a few scriptural examples to back it up. Like, think about Eve. She's the one who receives knowledge first, and then she shares it with Adam.
Oh, that's right. Almost like she's setting the stage for them to progress spiritually together.
Exactly. And then there's the story of the sons of Helaman, those super brave warriors. They never wavered in their faith.
Yeah, and Eyring says that's because of the faith of their mothers.
Powerful, right? It makes you think about those women in your own life, maybe not even your mom, but who've nurtured you spiritually. What did they do that really helped you connect with the gospel?
Ooh, that's a good question. I'm thinking of my Aunt Sarah. She was never a mom herself, but she had this way of making you feel so loved and valued, and she was always there to listen, to give advice.
See, that's nurturing, not just mothering, but creating that space where you've felt safe to explore your faith.
Absolutely.
And that's what Eyring is highlighting. It can look different for everyone, but it's that foundation, that environment where the Spirit can work.
Right, right. And it's interesting how he ties this whole nurturing thing to a woman's capacity to love. He has this one line that says, "It takes great love to feel someone else's needs more than your own."
Oh, I remember that. He's basically saying that putting others first, that's part of how women nurture, especially when it comes to spiritual things.
Yeah, like you have to really love someone to care that much about their spiritual well-being.
And he goes even further, saying this capacity to love, it's actually tied to the atonement of Jesus Christ.
Whoa, really?
Yeah, like because of Christ's sacrifice, women are more receptive to the Spirit's promptings, and that allows them to tap into this deeper well of love.
That's amazing. So it's not like he's saying women are better than men or that they have all the answers.
Right, exactly. It's more like they have this specific strength, this gift that's really essential for how families and individuals grow spiritually. And it's all rooted in love, made even stronger by the atonement.
Okay, that makes so much more sense.
Good. But, he doesn't pretend it's always easy. He acknowledges that figuring out how to nurture, when to nurture, even who needs it, it can be really tough.
Oh, absolutely. Especially when you're trying so hard to help someone and they're just like not responding or they're pulling away. It can be heartbreaking.
It can. And that's where I think his message of hope and perseverance comes in. He says, look, even when we face rebellion, indifference, Christ never gives up on us. He's always reaching out, inviting us back.
So we should try to be like that too, never giving up on the people we love.
Exactly. And to remember, sometimes what looks like no response is just a matter of timing. The seeds we plant, they might take weeks, months, years to sprout.
It's like that saying, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink.
Right. We can create the environment, but ultimately it's up to each person to choose whether they want to drink from that spiritual well.
That makes sense. And speaking of creating that environment, Eyring gets pretty practical about what this nurturing looks like in action. He talks about praying with family, preparing for scripture study, even just making little moments where spiritual truths can come up naturally.
He even tells that story about his mom making him a map of Paul's travels.
Oh, yeah, and how that simple thing made the scriptures come alive for him.
Exactly. It shows that even the littlest things can have a huge impact, especially when they're done with love and a desire to share the gospel.
It makes you think about all the people who've done that for you, right? Nurtured you in ways big and small.
He does. And it reminds us that this nurturing work, it's not just about delivering information, it's about creating those connections, that space where the Spirit can really work its magic.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, but let's be real for a second. This idea of women having a primary role in gospel learning at home, that can sound a bit, controversial in today's world where there's so much emphasis on equality, breaking down those traditional gender roles.
Oh, absolutely. I can see people listening and thinking, wait a minute, are you saying women should just stay home and teach their kids while men go out and do all the other stuff?
Exactly. So how do we reconcile that primary role idea with the concept of an equal partnership that Eyring keeps talking about?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's important to remember that Eyring is speaking from his own perspective as a man who was obviously deeply influenced by the women in his life.
Right, he's talking about his own experience.
Exactly. And I think he's acknowledging this unique contribution that women often make to spiritual development. But I don't think he's saying that men can't or shouldn't be equally involved.
Okay, so it's not about excluding men or diminishing their role.
No, not at all. I think it's more about recognizing the different strengths and perspectives that each gender brings to the table, rather than trying to assign rigid roles or responsibilities.
Right, like we all have different gifts and talents to offer.
Exactly. And those gifts can work together in beautiful ways when we create space for them to flourish.
I love that. So it's less about who is doing the teaching and more about creating that environment where everyone feels empowered to contribute, to learn, and to grow, regardless of their gender.
Beautifully said.
Yeah.
And, that leads us right into this idea of nurturing being a human quality, not just a female quality. It's something we're all capable of.
Oh, that's a good point. It's not like men can't nurture, it's just that it might look different.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we have to be careful not to equate nurturing with specific tasks or roles, like cooking, cleaning, or childcare.
Hmm.
Those are important, but they don't define what it means to be a nurturer.
Right. It's more about those qualities of love, compassion, and empathy that we talked about earlier. It's about creating a space where people feel heard, understood, and valued.
I couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah.
And you know what? I think we need to take a quick break here. We've covered a lot of ground, and there's so much more to unpack.
Agreed. We've just scratched the surface of this topic, and I'm already feeling like I have a whole new perspective on nurturing and its role in gospel learning.
Me too. We'll be back in a few minutes to dive even deeper into President Eyring's message and explore some practical ways we can all embrace our nurturing potential.
Sounds good. We'll be right back after the break.
All right, so we're back, and we're talking about nurturing. And I keep thinking about those scriptural examples we touched on, like Eve and the sons of Helaman. Do those stories really tell us something unique about how women contribute to spiritual understanding? Are there others we could look at too?
Yeah, the Eve one is interesting, right? Because it almost suggests that women have this built-in ability to receive spiritual knowledge, maybe in a way that's not as, I don't know, intuitive for men.
Like she's a conduit, that bridge between the divine and the human.
Yes, exactly. And then she takes that knowledge and gives it to Adam. It's like she's starting their spiritual journey together.
It's not just getting the knowledge, it's making it make sense and then communicating it, right?
Mhm. Oh, totally. And then with the sons of Helaman, it's that power of the mother's faith to shape her kids. Those young men, they faced so much, but they never wavered because their moms had built this strong foundation.
That's powerful. It makes you think about the women in your life who helped you on your spiritual path, right? And it wasn't always big lessons. Sometimes just their example made the biggest impact.
Oh, 100%. My grandma, she wasn't a big talker, but she lived her faith every single day. And I learned way more from watching her than from any book.
It's about that authenticity, isn't it? They're not just saying the words, they're living it.
Totally. Okay, but here's where I get a little stuck. Eyring keeps saying women have this primary role in gospel learning at home. Is that fair to say? What about all the amazing dads out there who are really involved in teaching their kids about the gospel?
Yeah, the word primary is tricky, isn't it? It makes it sound like men are somehow less important. And I really don't think that's what he means.
So how do we make sense of that? How do we balance that with this equal partnership he keeps talking about?
Well, remember, Eyring's a man speaking from his own experiences. He was clearly influenced by the women in his life,
Yeah, he's sharing his perspective.
right? So he's acknowledging what women often bring, but I don't think he's saying men can't or shouldn't be equally involved.
Okay, so it's not about men versus women. It's about recognizing we all have different things to offer.
That's it. And those differences, they can work together so well when we let them.
I like that. So less about who's teaching and more about creating the right atmosphere where everyone feels like they can contribute.
Yes. And honestly, this nurturing thing, it's not just for women, is it? It's a human quality.
Oh, good point. So men can nurture too, it just might look different.
Exactly. And we can't just say nurturing is cooking and cleaning, right? Those are important, but they don't define it.
It's more about those qualities like love and empathy, being there for someone, making them feel safe.
Yes. Creating that space where they feel heard and valued,
Mm,
that's nurturing.
totally. But even saying that women have the strength when it comes to nurturing, that can be controversial, right? Especially these days when everyone's talking about breaking down traditional gender
Oh,
roles.
yeah, for sure. People might hear this and worry we're trying to, like, put women back in the kitchen or something.
Exactly. And I don't think that's Eyring's message at all.
No way. I think he's trying to highlight something powerful about women, but not in a way that limits them.
So how do we talk about this in a way that feels empowering instead of limiting?
Well, I think first we have to remember nurturing isn't just a female thing. It's human.
Hmm.
Both men and women can do it, but it might show up differently.
And it's not just certain tasks either.
Right. It's about creating a space where people can grow. Listening, encouraging, celebrating their wins, that's nurturing. Making them feel like they belong.
I like that a lot. So it's less about doing specific things and more about being a certain way.
Yes. It's about love, compassion, empathy, connecting with people on a deeper level.
Okay, that makes sense. So it's not about fitting into a mold. It's about each of us figuring out how we nurture best.
That's it. And I think both men and women can do that no matter what their life looks like.
All right, so we've talked about this idea that women often have a strength when it comes to nurturing, and that it's not exclusive to women and can look many different ways. But how do we actually put this into practice in our own lives? What does it look like to embrace our nurturing potential?
I think it starts with noticing how we're already nurturing people. You know, maybe it's our words, our actions, even just being there.
Yeah, it's about paying attention to those little moments where we can make a difference. Like listening to a friend who's having a hard time or telling a coworker they're doing a great job.
Or even just being present, really listening when someone needs to talk. That makes them feel heard.
And it's not always about big, dramatic things. Sometimes it's those small, everyday acts of kindness that really matter.
Exactly. Those little things add up and create a feeling of love and support.
So it's not about being perfect. It's about trying, right? Being aware of the opportunities and just putting a little more love out there.
Yeah. And being patient with ourselves. We're all learning and we're going to mess up sometimes.
So we embrace the journey, the good and the bad, and keep trying to get better at nurturing ourselves and the people around us.
And remember, nurturing isn't just about giving to others. It's about taking care of ourselves too. We can't give what we don't have.
Oh, that's such a good reminder. We need to fill our own cups first so we have something to share.
Right. Taking care of ourselves actually helps us be better at loving and serving others in the long run.
I love that. So it's this balance, giving and receiving, self-care, and caring for others.
And it's not just a nice thing to do, it's essential. It's how we create a better world.
So if we want more love, compassion, all that good stuff, we need to start by nurturing ourselves and then finding ways to share that with everyone around us.
And that brings us right back to Eyring's message about women. He's saying they have this amazing ability to nurture and create those connections that are so important for our spiritual growth, for how we connect with the gospel.
But like we talked about, it's not just women, it's all of us, figuring out how we can embrace nurturing in our own way.
And it's not just about our own little families thriving, it's about making a difference in our communities and the world around us.
It's about building Zion one little act of kindness at a time.
Yes. And even those small things, they matter more than we realize, especially when they're done with love and with the desire to share the gospel.
So as we navigate this crazy world with all its information overload, let's remember the power of nurturing. It's how we connect, how we grow, how we find truth.
And it's not just a nice extra. It's part of God's plan. It's how we build Zion, step by step, act by act, connection by connection.
This has been such a great conversation. It feels like we've barely scratched the surface. What else are you thinking about with all this?
I keep thinking about that statement about women having a primary role at home. And I wonder, how does that sound in different cultures? Where family and gender roles are different.
Oh, that's such a good point. We're looking at this through our own lens, but what about other perspectives?
Exactly. And are there other stories from the scriptures that we haven't even thought of that could add to this whole idea of nurturing?
Ooh, like what?
I don't know, maybe something beyond Eve's or those mothers, something that shows us different ways this nurturing idea plays out.
Yeah. Like Esther using her power to protect her people, or Deborah leading Israel to victory. They were strong and courageous, but they were also serving others.
See, that's nurturing too, but in a different way, and it's not just in the home.
Right. So if nurturing really is a divine gift, like Eyring says, how do we learn to do it better, no matter who we are or what our life looks like?
That's the big question, isn't it? And I think it starts with realizing that nurturing isn't something you're just born with or you're not. It's something we learn, we practice, we get better at over time.
So it's not magic, it's a choice, a decision to become more loving and compassionate in everything we do.
Yes, and we have to be patient with ourselves because it's a lifelong journey and we won't always get it right.
But even those times when we mess up, they can teach us something, right? They help us grow.
Exactly. It's about embracing the whole journey, even the messy parts, and knowing that even when we don't feel like we're doing it perfectly, we're still learning.
So it's not about being perfect, it's about trying to be more like the Savior, a little more loving and nurturing every day.
That's beautiful. And it brings us back to Ehring's vision. Women and men working together, teaching, nurturing, building Zion in their homes and communities, and preparing the world for Christ's return.
Wow, that's powerful. He's saying that even simple things like family scripture study are part of something so much bigger.
It really makes you rethink what it means to make a difference, doesn't it? It's not always about grand gestures. It's about those everyday acts of love and service that happen in our homes and in our interactions with the people around us.
I love that. It's like we're each contributing to this incredible tapestry, thread by thread, creating something beautiful and lasting.
And we don't have to wait for a special calling or position to do it. We can start right now with the people around us by simply choosing to be more loving, more patient, more nurturing.
So, as we wrap up our deep dive into President Eyring's talk, what's the one thing you hope our listeners take away from this conversation?
I think it's this. Nurturing isn't just something we do for others. It's something we do for ourselves too. We need to recognize our own need for love and connection and then find ways to create that in our own lives.
Because when we take care of ourselves, we can better take care of others. It's like filling up our own cup so we have something to pour out.
Exactly. And that nurturing, it can look like so many things. Spending time in nature, reading a good book, listening to music, having meaningful conversations. It's about those things that bring us joy and connect us to something bigger.
And it's about letting ourselves rest and recharge,
Yeah.
stepping away from the craziness of life and just being.
Because when we do that, when we prioritize our own well-being, we're actually becoming better at loving and serving other people.
I love that. It's a reminder that nurturing isn't a burden, it's a gift to ourselves and to everyone around us. And it's a gift that can change lives and build Zion one little act of kindness at a time. Thanks for joining us on this amazing journey.
It is powerful. And it also reminds us we don't need some big fancy calling to make a difference. We can start right here, right now, with the people we love, just by being a little more loving, a little more sharing our faith.
Yeah, just those little things, those everyday acts of kindness.
Those are the things that build Zion, one step at a time.
Okay, so as we kind of wrap up our deep dive into President Eyring's talk, what's the one thing you really hope sticks with people? Like, what should they walk away thinking about?
I think the biggest thing is this nurturing idea. It's not just something we do for other people. It's for us too.
Oh, that's interesting. You mean like taking care of ourselves?
Exactly. We have to recognize that we need love and connection too. We need to be spiritually fed.
Mhm.
And then we have to find ways to make that happen for ourselves.
Because if we're running on empty, we can't really give to anyone else.
Exactly. It's like filling up your own cup so you have something to pour out for others.
So what does that look like? How do we nurture ourselves?
It's different for everyone, right?
Yeah.
For some people, it's spending time in nature, maybe reading, listening to music, having good conversations. It's about finding the things that bring you joy and connect you to something bigger than yourself.
And sometimes it's just giving yourself permission to rest, to step away from the busyness and just breathe.
Yes. Because when we do that, when we take care of ourselves, we're actually becoming better at loving and serving the people around us.
Wow, that's a really cool way to think about it. So it's not selfish to take care of ourselves, it's actually the opposite.
Exactly. It's like we're not just doing it for us, we're doing it so we can give more to others.
I love that. It reframes this whole idea of nurturing. It's not a burden, it's a gift we give to ourselves and to everyone we love. And it's something that can really change the world one little act of kindness at a time.
That's a great way to put it. It's about building Zion, not through big pronouncements, but through those small, everyday moments of love and connection.
And it all starts with nurturing ourselves so that we have that love to share. This has been an amazing conversation, and I feel like I've learned so much about nurturing, both for myself and for others. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into President Eyring's talk, everyone. Until next time, remember to keep seeking, keep sharing, and keep nurturing those around you.